All right, greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuni Israel Solonomics 101 Left Project. Man, coming back off of Minty's monologue to this week, I think, wow, it was like a thriller, let's just say. And I found a new group. Shout out to all those who are on Facebook. And I didn't know all this time. A whole season has gone by, plus a couple of episodes, season and a half. And I just found on Facebook watch group or underground watch group who watches and comments. And I just want to say hilarious. That's all I have to say. I mean, wow. But this episode, yeah. Again, you're just seeing more of what is underneath the surface of a lot of the characters. And, if you can't relate to what's going on, you might possibly be out of touch. There was a line that stuck with me. There's no right way to be a slave. I'm not sure if that was from Roots or from last episode of the Underground, but nonetheless, there's this thought that everyone is quote trying to survive, and people do it in different ways, and a lot of people could say they never, and then when the time comes they make a different choice. And we saw that when in the case of Noah, when Cato thought he had him a couple of episodes ago, and Noah said no, he wouldn't give up his life for others to go free anymore. But funny enough, then he meets up with Rosalie, who convinces him to go back to Macon of all places. And this is kind of where they end up. They end up with this crazy wild scheme. She's breaking all the rules, going way too close. She runs up in the house. That was crazy. And then you see the little a lot of people had a visceral reaction to, I think his name is James, help me with the name, but Rosalie's little brother. What's funny and interesting is that when you leave a place to seek your survival or your sanity or your wellness of mind, when you leave that place, you're remembering people as they were at that time when you left. And so the thought of that individual is crystallized in your mind, and oftentimes we project onto others, whether it be good or bad, what we want for them. And so after leaving, she's remembering her little brother and him having to go into the field and having to pick cotton. She doesn't know what happened to her mother. She didn't know what happened to him. And she's going on old information. And a lot of times when we are on our journey of self-discovery or healing or whatever it is, the journey for spiritual, oneness with the Creator, and you're trying to step away from brokenness and things of that nature, sometimes we want to turn back and go for those who were there. But the reality is, I would say a lot of the time, no one doesn't, I wouldn't say no one, let me say, a lot of the time, those who knew you when don't want to come. It's like a prophet is not known in his own town kind of thing. And so they always, yeah, so as I was saying, it's that whole thought process of I know you, so I don't really think you've changed. And that's kind of what we struggle with in the show. Rosalie is there and she's shocked. She's frightened. Like, I risked my life to come back in here. Getting there is when she learned that the mother is no longer there. Steen is no longer there. And so she tries to go into the house to rescue the son. And he's like, he rats on her. He squeals and gets her in trouble. And the little flash from what's to come is that ultimately she's going to be back and subjected into slavery. I say all this to say there's so much else that happened. Old characters are back. Steen finally gets off the island. That's one more thing. Clara, I know everybody was like, well, how do you think she's going to act? She has an axe to grind. She has a vendetta. She used Steen to get the information to get herself in a position of power, so to say, in her thought process. And now that she felt like she's above now, but not remembering that Steen has been in this space for way longer than she's been alive, and she's very well aware of how to navigate around and through Europeans to kind of get what she wants, because that was her MO back in the day. And so she really there was the immaturity of Clara to really think that she was going to get one up on Steen, but nonetheless, the writers have her fall back into the hands of the slave catchers. And the last thing that comes to mind as we look as that story unfolds, as everybody is back in that same position, but you can't unlearn what you've already learned. And so now it's interesting to see how that's going to work out, where not all of the Macon Seven, but maybe 4 or 5 of this Macon Seven end up back in the space that they once were, but not the same people anymore. And I've read books on where there were people just like Steen and Cato and those who thought, you know what, if I just played by the rules, it would all go well. And when it didn't go well, then they got this taste of freedom, this desire to escape. And it's interesting and wow how, if you haven't heard of a quack psychologist, they call him pseudo psychologist, named Samuel Cartwright, during that time would go around to plantations trying to convince people that slaves who weren't happy in their estate had drapetomania. So go ahead and look up drapetomania if you haven't heard it before. It's this thought that you should be oppressed and like it. And when you tried to run away, they had all of these remedies, like the branding you saw of her face, to indicate that she is not being oppressed or suppressed willfully, and she's rebelling against this thought. And so it was a little strange to me to read a lot of these stories and accounts, and to really go into the slave master's mind. That's what I think is very interesting. And really, you know, they had to convince themselves that my slaves are happy. They like this. They enjoy this. This is something that they had to tell themselves to be able to bear the side of themselves, which we'll talk about another day. So once again, has been Imuna Yisrael with the Underground Review. We'll come again and how could I go without talking about Cato? Cato is back in a position where he has to choose between himself and others. And even though when he wasn't so pressed, he chose others and he was beginning to free people, he fell in love, so to say, with the East Indian woman, and now they're trying to sell her into slavery. And so this speaks to a time where they were capturing free people, and if I'm not mistaken, they call it the Second Exodus, when the erosion of the coastlines. Oh boy, we'll pick this up more. Cato is a trip. Tell me what you thought about Cato and the choice that he had to make. I'll go ahead and leave it there. Thank you for tuning in once again. This is Imuna Yisrael. Feel free to check out the links in the box. Reach out. Books on sale. Soap have come back to market. So definitely support the work so the works can continue to be supported. All right? One.